Welcome back to Our Lady of Holy Darkness. I'm going to get into some things today that most people have probably never heard of. And I'm going to give you a different way to start looking at things. Let's look at the Tower of Babel, shall we? A little bit deeper than what we did last time. In the Tower of Babel, we have the slaves threatening the master. Because I'm going to tell you now, war has been declared on mankind by alien life forms which pretend to be God. There you go. It's true. See, you need to start looking at why we have been kept so busy fighting each other while these aliens feast on our misery. Mankind has been genetically altered by an extraterrestrial race to serve as slaves. And the original genetic engineers responsible for our mutation have long since departed. And they've left in their wake another group, which are known as the Watchers. And of course, they claim to merely be observing our species. That's bullshit. The Watchers are merely the latest in line of manipulating species which have interfered with the natural evolution of humanity. The original custodians of the human race, known as the Elohim, set the stage for mankind's history of manipulation. See, after the flood, the Elohim became less concerned with us, believing that their genetically improved human slaves would no longer threaten their position of authority. So they allowed humans to train and work in their spaceports. And these human workers began to become very familiar with the vehicles which the gods used to travel to their supposed divine abodes in the sky. Ancient records describe these vehicles, especially this vehicle, as a sky chamber, an oval vehicle which flew across the sky. Our modern description of these oval-shaped vehicles are called flying saucers, UFOs. And in ancient days, man built stone monuments to simulate the fiery skyships that the gods traveled in. These monuments were called names that meant things like stones that rise, Sumerian. Objects that give off light, from the Akkadians, Babylonians, Assyrians. Fiery objects, the Amuru. And of course, the firebird of stone, the Hurrians and Hittites. The Hebrew word for these oval-topped monuments to the alien skyships is Shem. Now, modern Bibles mistranslate the word Shem into the English word name, completely changing the meaning of the Tower of Babel story. See, the human workers began to spread out across the land and realized that if they imitated their masters and built a skyship, they would be able to improve their station in life and become like gods. Now, the Bible begins the tale of the Tower of Babel by stating a very important fact. And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. It's significant to note that up until this point in biblical history, man had not fought against his fellow man, other than in conflicts between individuals. There had been no mention of wars, racial strife, no religious bigotry, no patriotic bloodbaths. Man had no reason to gang up and attack other groups of men. And at that time, Man was not at war with his fellow man, and all men communicated freely in one tongue. And it was this free communication which God knew he had to put to an end. And why? Because if he planned on keeping men enslaved, he would have to. And knowing that the word Shem has been mistranslated, we can now read what was really happening in the Bible. And it came to pass as they journeyed from the east that they found a plain in the land of Shinar. And they dwelt there. And they said one to another, Go to, let us make brick and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime had they for mortar. And they said, Go to, let us build us a city and a tower whose top may reach unto heaven. And let us make us a name, a Shem, or a sky ship, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. Now, some of you may be looking at me going, that's bullshit. But I'll tell you what, it's not. It's nowhere near bullshit. And I'm going to tell you why. When you read the works of the rabbis, I'm going to read what I just wrote, what I just read to you. I'm going to read and then tell you what the rabbis say. Okay? In the Torah, the Pasuk states, and it came to pass when they traveled from the east that they found a valley in the land of Shinar and settled there. They traveled from the east has a coded meaning, but so do the words they found a valley. It is almost impossible to recognize the secret codes and their messages without knowledge of the original Hebrew. The traveling from the east, Kedem, is understood as a movement away from something as opposed to being a move towards something. They were traveling away from the Kedem. Kedem is related to the word Kadmon. It means ancient. The travel of the people was specifically their distancing themselves from God and their attempt to remove themselves from the divinely ordained natural order. What they're saying here is we were moving away from our slave masters, the ones who told us they are God. Now, in order to enable them to accomplish this formidable task, now remember, this is from the rabbis, they would need some type of power or energy that could create for them an artificial environment and endow it with the power to withstand natural forces. Numerous Midrashic literature, including the Zohar, state that they discovered this ability secretly buried in the sands, concealed by members of the pre-flood generation. And according to Rabbi Eliezer ben David, in his book Out of the Iron Furnace, they did not find a valley, a bika, but rather they found a bikia. This word bikia means an opening or a discovery. The Zohar and others state that what they found was the ancient technology of the pre-flood generation. Now listen to this. The Hebrew word bikia also means nuclear fission. Both the Torah text and our sages' commentaries seem to imply that the ancient technology hidden by the members of the generation of the flood, later discovered by the builders of Babel, was nothing other than the secrets of nuclear technology. Rabbi Yitzhak Demin Akko writes how the generation of Babel had expert knowledge of both natural law and what he refers to there, using the ancient term the Sha'ir Komah, the measurement of the stature. These measurements are symbolic numbers that were the first form used to house Kabbalistic secrets. Doesn't seem so crazy now, does it? I mean, even the rabbis are talking about this. Now listen to this. Creating an environment so insular and disconnected from all outside influence is one thing. This may indeed be interpreted as an act of rebellion against living under divine authority. However, the intent of the generation of Babel did not end there. The Torah text makes it very clear that there was both a tower and a city. The mention of both implies a dual intent. Each was different and served its own purpose. The city was to be a place from insular defensive protection, but the tower had a more nefarious purpose to it. According to the Midrashic sources, including the Zohar, the generation of Babel wanted to use the tower as their launching pad for a military retaliatory strike on heaven. They were not just preparing defensively to protect themselves from future divine wrath, they were preparing to launch a major military offensive. I want you to think about that as I go on. Now, it doesn't sound so crazy, does it? See, with this type of knowledge now we can discuss even further this Tower of Babel. Because, see, it's apparent that at this time, man was attempting to build a civilization for himself. As the Midrashic sources say, they wanted a city away from these gods. They desired to have a city and a launch tower for a skyship so that they could be like the gods. And if the original translation of Shem were kept as name, I have to ask, how is it that this name would not keep them from being scattered abroad upon the face of the earth? Whatever the translation, one thing is clear. These gods were not pleased with man's desire to break free of their chains of enslavement. They did not want man to improve his lot in life. Genesis 11:5 says, and the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men built. Why does an all-seeing God need to come down to see anything? And where exactly is he coming down from? Genesis 11:6, and the Lord said, behold, the people are one, and they have all one language, and this they begin to do. And now nothing will be restrained from them which they have imagined to do. Oh my God, now we see it. The reference to mankind being one. See, God will not have that. He will not have man one as one. I keep telling you, this new world order everyone talks about, which is actually an old world order, it isn't to bring mankind under one. It's to keep us separated. Oh yes, we will have one government. We will have one religion and one economy, but they will still keep us separated. Now I have to ask, how is it that making a name would be so much of a threat to God that he would say that nothing could be restrained from them? The replacement of the word name with skyship, skyborne vehicle, nuclear missile makes the threat much more understandable. And another important point is that these gods admit that if man works together, there's nothing we can't do. The master-slave relationship becomes very clear now, and it becomes obvious that God does not want to lose us because we are his slaves. And all you got to do is look at the action he takes. In 11:7 of Genesis, it says, go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. The fact is,